Today, I am delighted to be joined by Rasmus Bach Nielsen, who is the Global Head of Fuel Decarbonisation at commodities group Trafigura, and also board member of MorGen Energy Denmark. Based in Denmark, welcome, Rasmus.
Thank you very much.
So Rasmus will be speaking at our flagship hydrogen event, World Hydrogen Week, taking place in Copenhagen this October. And today we will be getting to know a little more about Rasmus ahead of the conference. So let me start by asking you to tell us, how did you get into the world of hydrogen and where do you see its future?
For Trafigura, we started our hydrogen mission back in 2021. I've been fortunate to be in Denmark, where we as a company have decided to put a very strong strategic focus. So in June 21, we bought land in Esbjerg, and in Esbjerg we are working extremely hard, have been working extremely hard on maturing a 1 gigawatt electrolyzer production site.
Amazing. That sounds interesting. And can you tell us about any particular challenges or bottlenecks that you've been facing with this project, and if you're seeing more generally in the market?
Oh, I can tell you of many. First and foremost, I mean, maturing this kind of large-scale projects, there is a very deep permitting process with regulators. We've been working extremely closely with the local municipality and the energy agency in Denmark towards the permitting. We have had numerous meetings with the local citizens, educating them on hydrogen, in terms of that hydrogen is not the Brandenburg and the risks are pertained and it's a known industry. So dealing with the regulators and local population is one aspect. One of the most significant challenges we've had in terms of the project to become reality is the pipeline. The hydrogen pipeline has been a very severe challenge in the process, and if we go back, knowing the challenges we would have to overcome, maybe we wouldn't even have started at all. But I'll probably dive a little bit into that shortly in terms of what the hydrogen challenges, pipeline challenges have been. But it's been 4 years of extremely deep and hard work for the whole organization behind.
And can you see any kind of major things that would help to overcome some of these challenges?
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's learning. Regulators are learning in terms of permitting processes. Should it stay with the national energy agency or should it go out to the municipalities? Each municipality will not have had a historical experience in dealing with hydrogen in the permitting, but there's deep processes going on in terms of streamlining government permitting processes. So that's one aspect. But again, without hydrogen pipeline conditions where the industry can see itself in, it would be totally impossible to get towards FID. So the pipeline, and let me just maybe dive into the pipeline because it's such a deep stress element for the project. Initially, the government didn't realize the society value for hydrogen, what hydrogen can bring. Hydrogen clearly can balance and optimize the grid. One of the big problems we have in Europe is competitiveness of industry, hard to abate industries, but of industry in general. Electricity prices, energy prices are too high. That's also what the Draghi report is saying. And what really can enable more energy to land is hydrogen. Hydrogen is the enabler of landing more energy into Europe. The fact that it's green is only a super added benefit for everyone. But the reality for the Danish government really kicked in back in December last year when the historical large wind tender failed. 6 gigawatt, there were no bidders. We had already pre-warned all the climate and energy spokespersons in the parliament that probably it would fail because there wasn't the underlying demand for the electricity which could create baseline PPA demand. So understanding what hydrogen can bring took a long time for the politicians. Now they have realized it. After 3 attempts, the hydrogen pipeline conditions, the terms which the industry are meeting, are now in a realistic space where industry can actually execute. And what makes it a realistic space? It means that we have no dependency on others, and others don't have dependency on others neither. The challenge, a big challenge in a 2 billion, let's say approximately 2 billion euro project, which our Nordkraft 1 gigawatt project in Esbjerg, Denmark is, we cannot be dependent on another project taking FID within the same time horizon that we're working on. Different companies have different strategies, different timelines. We will not be managing to sell offtake to the same counterparties at the same time. But the terms and conditions the government gave to the industry on the first pipeline condition or pipeline agreement early last year was that the industry needed to commit 1.4 gigawatt of low heat value equivalent production into the pipeline. And a 1 gigawatt production side input has 0.6 gigawatt out after district heating, heat to district heating, and energy conversion. So that means that you would need at least 2 large-scale projects FIDing at the same time, which we told the politicians and had told the politicians together with the rest of the industry and industry organizations, this is impossible. It took a while for the politicians to realize that the pipeline conditions were unrealistic. Then they subsequently made a second agreement. And I'm going a little bit in detail here because it's been such a deep element of coming to where we are today, and the frustrating part, the tough parts, and also what has been making the projects less realistic, but now more realistic. The second pipeline agreement was October last year, and they lowered the minimum throughput commitment from industry to 0.8 gigawatt. But still, when your 1 gigawatt site has a max production of 0.6, we are still dependent on others. Again, we told the politicians, we used the media, we used the interest organizations because they understood it. It also took a little while for them, but they really understood it by now that a large-scale project cannot be dependent on another project. And then when the wind tender failed, it was like, okay, we really need to get in deep into the engine room to understand the industry is not bluffing. We were very continuous in our messaging. And in the end, 6th of February this year, third hydrogen pipeline agreement from the government, minimum user commitment of 0.5 gigawatt, meaning that one large-scale producer can actually, with its own production, and committing 80 to 90% of the max capacity of the factory, enable the government FID on the pipeline. Huge challenge, super frustrating process, but also it's fair enough, politicians have many things to do. And we of course have our own interest, but we are fortunate here because it's a common national interest, it's a European interest. And Energinet has actually estimated, the Danish pipeline owner has estimated society value of more than 10 billion euros for Denmark having hydrogen and hydrogen production implemented.
Yeah, well, it's clearly just very complex, and lots of moving parts and different stakeholders trying to make it happen. And yeah, it's interesting to hear the different hurdles that you face, but great that you were able to get a good outcome in February, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about how that develops over the next few years. That kind of leads me into my next question, which is kind of on this policy side of things. Are there any other kind of recent geopolitical shifts or changing policy landscapes beyond kind of what you've just mentioned that you see as being a positive that might help or also might hinder the global hydrogen economy development?
I think generally what's happening geopolitically at the moment is only supporting hydrogen implementation in Europe. And I'm not saying it's good what's happening geopolitically at all, so don't get me wrong on that. But it's definitely positive hydrogen in the sense that Europe needs to supply its own energy. Europe needs to supply cheaper energy to itself in order to retain or obtain competitiveness long term. And the challenge we have is the grid cannot absorb what the energy landing potential is in Europe. I give you an example. In Denmark, we have historically installed 2.8 gigawatt of offshore wind. We have more than 35 gigawatt potential lying in the seas, just in the seas around Denmark. And the grid probably is capable around taking around 7 to 8 gig. So we cannot land the energy in the grid today. So we need another energy carrier which can enable significantly more energy to land. And this is not only Denmark, this is Germany, this is rest of Europe. And clearly, with the tariffs, with the war, both these aspects just needs, Europe totally needs its own energy independence. I'm doubtful. If the war hadn't been there, maybe Germany would not have been as focused as they are. I mean, they have been taking total leadership on potential offtake for the hard-to-abate industry in Germany. Thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs are at stake for these industries. Yeah, so geopolitical events are actually supporting hydrogen implementation.
Okay. And how do you envisage hydrogen and ammonia import and export flows to emerge or shift over the next decade?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have been in Trafigura pushing significantly for a global CO2 carbon levy in the shipping space. We have made deep dives, white papers, and spent a lot of time with the IMO as well, which is the international regulator, UN body on shipping. So we spent a lot of time on this. And we're agnostic on what fuels, shipping fuels will be there in the future. Chances are it's probably be ammonia in majority, because you don't have the need for the CO2 feedstock as you need for methanol. Time will show. Regulators, the IMO body, did regulate recently or working towards formalizing implementation on a global carbon levy. So the green fuels in due course will materialize. But in terms of hydrogen, the future, and for Europe, again, we're looking from Europe. Lots is happening globally, clearly, but we are in the depth of it in Europe. We don't believe that there will be ammonia sailing into Europe, being cracked, put into a pipeline. The energy loss is significant. The ammonia is not being produced in the first place, and chances are that the maritime industry in due course will come and absorb the ammonia. So it will be a very significant and risky investment if one goes and invests into a cracker to convert ammonia back into hydrogen from where it would have originated before it came on a ship from its departure location, probably in South America or Middle East or Australia, these whereabouts. So for Europe, and in terms of hydrogen, most probably it's going to go into hard-to-abate industries, at least in the first years. Having said that, I mean, now, for instance, in Denmark, we have negative power prices, particularly in the summer when the sun is shining, there's a lot of wind. I'm of the view that hydrogen will become significantly cheaper than we think. The hydrogen producers will become better and better, opting in and out of high and low energy prices in Europe. Denmark actually just yesterday or 2 days ago relaunched the failed wind tender. We know there will be 3 gigs coming in by 2032, 2033, so that would be a doubling of the Danish offshore wind capacity in one go. Electricity will land. Europe needs it to land. There's such a political interest. And the big beneficiary of this is going to be the hydrogen off-takers and the hydrogen producers. So I'm actually extremely bullish that hydrogen will cost significantly less than what people are estimating.
Well, it's good to have some optimism and some hope.
Yeah.
And so what do you expect will be the biggest trend to see in the hydrogen transition by either 2030 or 2050 or both?
Yeah, so I mean, biggest trend, technology cost will come down. we already sense it, and I don't know if it's. I mean, China is really going very fast on this, and we see how much wind they have installed also on the electrolyzer technology. They're running very fast. So we are of the firm view that technology costs will come down, potentially also significantly, which is great because hydrogen needs to become more price competitive. We all agree on that. The whole challenge the whole industry has, and then that leads on to 30 and 40 and 50. We need to get it kickstarted. And that does require some government funding because it's a new industry. It's like with the wind industry. Initially, for the first many years, particularly in Denmark, there were CFD contracts. And now the government have just made another CFD contract here 30 years later, 20, 30 years later. So I mean, governments are used to doing this for landing energy. And we also need certain structures for hydrogen to kick off. Over time, I'm a firm believer, we are believers that hydrogen prices will come off potentially significantly. And that will sort of help pave the way for hydrogen. And that leads on to sort of what are the estimates. Yeah, for 2030, again, only the first big hard-to-abate industries will probably be there, or I believe they will be there. Yeah. And as that sort of kicks in, and we all learn that, okay, this is not dangerous technology. I mean, of course, there's always a lot of security measures that needs to be taken. We will be good, I think, not us, but or generally the market will be good at optimizing, again, opting in and out. And then off-takers, they will learn that, wow, okay, it's actually not as expensive as what was being presented. But clearly in the beginning, when one goes out to a financing bank asking for, let's say, 70 to 80% leverage on a 2 billion euro project, yeah, it's dangerous to be over aggressive. So everybody's sort of building in some fat in the chain, and we need to get better, but that we can only get by experience. So then we take risk out of all these projects that are being matured. So 2030, hard to abate industry, but 2032, 33, 34, for sure, the petrochemical industry, the refiners for eSAF, etc., they will come on board. We believe, and the market, by the way, yeah. So the consumers ourselves, yeah, probably we will also in due course be willing to pay more for a green flight ticket. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot to do in a short space of time, but good to hear the optimism. And what's next for Trafigura's hydrogen plans?
Yeah, so what's next? We are very close, and now we are in May. So obviously this is taking place in October. October, yes, sorry. We are very close to taking FID on a project in the UK. Fingers crossed that when we meet in Copenhagen in October, that this is done, dusted, FID taken. We are shortlisted for another project in the UK. Initially, there's government funds involved in this, including a CFD structure. We just have to realize that when a new industry needs to start, this is somewhat a prerequisite. And so governments then needs to make a strategic decision to what can this do for our industry, for our energy mix, and to date, and we share this view, and this is also why we believe in this business. I mean, it will play an important role in the future energy mix because it will enable significantly more electricity to land, thereby lowering energy prices over time, i.e. more energy independence to Europe, which is totally needed.
Great. Well, good luck with the next steps then. So can you tell me what you're most looking forward to about World Hydrogen Week in October in Copenhagen?
In October, hopefully we will have seen more projects take FID, hopefully including one for ourselves. It would be a good opportunity to look back, but also as we all gather together and momentum will be building, which we believe it will be, we can get in and further manifest that the hydrogen transition is happening. And I look forward to participating in doing that.
Well, thank you so much for your insights, Rasmus, and we're really looking forward to welcoming you at World Hydrogen Week in October. So if anybody does want to hear more from Rasmus, we encourage you to join us. You can find out more at worldhydrogenweek.com. Thank you again, and take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.